Hello and welcome to Irresistible You Ignite Your Passion and Purpose. My name is Karen Seltz, and I had an amazing meeting today with a client who is very, very intelligent and has relied so much on his intellect and his ability to logically solve problems that he has kind of shut the door on his intuition. And I thought, how many of us in childhood are trained to not listen to our gut, to not listen to what we want, what we need? And, I think about, how most of us were raised is, go give Aunt Millie a kiss. And we're like, ew, she's gross. I don't want to do it anyway. She's family. And even, relatives that were not really safe for children. Maybe they had drinking issues. Maybe they weren't safe, touch wise. You know what I'm talking about? We're still taught to go against our own internal guidance and to do this thing that our parents or somebody or society says, hey, you listen to the adults, you do what you're told. And it gets trained out of us so that that voice or whatever, however you receive intuition, becomes so quiet you can no longer hear it. There's an override going on. And I think about this study that Heart Math Institute did, and it gives me goosebumps every single time. And they had a group of children playing on a playground, and the parents all knew what was happening. The parents were instructed to not interfere with the experiment because their children would be safe. So they were just sitting around the outside of the park, just there, so the kids knew they were there. They knew they were okay. They knew they were safe, right? And they had a convicted child molester come on the property where nobody could see him. And every single one of those children ran over to their parent because they knew they weren't safe. Now, what told them they weren't safe? Well, their theory is the energy of the heart of this man reached out to the energy of their hearts, and they felt it and they knew they weren't safe. And how many times have you had this experience where you don't like somebody, you don't trust them, or they feel unsafe to you? And you either feel it in your body or you might get thoughts in your mind. There's lots of different ways it can come in. And even when people, this is really when in dating, right? If you're dating and somebody looks really good on paper, they look so good on paper, but your gut's like, ugh, that is your intuition. A lot of times your guidance, telling you, hey, go a different direction, warning, right? So what I want to talk about in this episode is really how do you access that, especially if it's been dormant. I'm not going to say it's gone. It's always been there, always. And you ever have those hits where you're like, oh, I better go back in the house. I think I forgot something, and you left the stove on, or I don't know, there's so many different things. Like somebody pops into your mind, a friend that you haven't talked to in a long time, and you reach out to them and they were really sad or hurting, or they just got a really bad medical diagnosis. These things happen all the time. And many of us who are logical would like an explanation for those. And there are plenty of explanations. We could go into them, but really what I'm here for is to share this. And I love using a couple quotes. One of my favorite people of all time is Einstein. He is the father of quantum physics. I absolutely adore this man. And this is so funny to me that when I was looking up quotes on intuition, he's the first one that popped up. The only real valuable thing is intuition. Albert Einstein. The only real valuable thing is intuition. The only, right? Like, that's crazy. I mean, this is a scientist talking about intuition being the only real valuable thing. That's mind-blowing to me. I've never heard that quote. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with David Lynch. He's a movie producer, director, whatever, all those things. He says intuition is the key to everything in painting, filmmaking, business, everything. I think you could have an intellectual ability, but if you can sharpen your intuition, which they say is emotion and intellect joining together, then a knowingness occurs, a knowingness. So it's not just knowing it up here, it's knowing it all the way in your body. For me, that's what intuition is more like. It's a whole body, like, yes, like my body is like, yes, it's going forward. It's leaning in. It's expansive. It's a hell yes. And it's learning to listen to that. And for a while, it's going to be really weird, because one thing I can promise you is intuition is rarely, if ever, logical. Like, it makes no sense. Like, you go the same way to work every single day, and your intuition's like, you know what? Take this street today. And then, I don't know, you see a lost kitten or dog, and you pick up the dog, you save it. I don't, who knows? You avoid an accident. It could be any number of things. But if you hadn't listened to that, something would have happened that you either would have missed an opportunity that was meant for you, or maybe something bad would have happened, something that you wouldn't like. So I don't know, it's really fun to start playing with it. And one thing that I've noticed is when I have like a very strict agenda, like I'm going to do this, 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 and this, and there's no room for space or error. And especially, like, for example, I used to go to 12-step meetings certain days of the week. I would go to the same meetings every week. And it hit me one day, like, why am I doing that? Because I should, because I'm supposed to. And it was like a habit. I just did it. And it was like, it's almost like superstition. Like, if I don't do this, I'm going to slip up and not be sober anymore. But I started to really check in with myself. Is this meeting the best use of my time right now? Sometimes it was a yes, sometimes it was a no. And there are meetings I went to that had the opposite effect on me. They made me feel much worse about myself, about life, about, I don't know. There were like icky people there sometimes that just gave me the creeps. And when I really started checking in with myself, do I need this? Is this the best use of my time? And I'll give you some questions that I ask often before I make decisions. So I'm going to give you that. Intuition can come in a variety of different ways. For me, I am super auditory, which means I hear things. I hear voices. I hear, like, when I hear hits, for example, when I am coaching someone, or when I'm about to go live and do this show or any other type of video that I do, I don't like have a list of topics usually. That's not how I roll. I sit down and I pray, and I'm like, okay, the Holy Spirit, God, source, guides, what wants to come through me right now? What wants to come through me? How can I best serve? Now, that's because I'm doing this. So you take this however it applies to you and tweak it, right? Like, if somebody comes to you, a friend, and they want advice or they want you to listen, you could do that silently in your head, right? Like, come through me. What do they need to hear right now? Because I promise you, your ego mind does not know. It thinks it knows. It thinks it knows everything. At least mine does. like I used to think I had all the answers. And the more I thought that, the more of an asshole I was, number one. But the more wrong I was too. Because if I think I know everything, I know nothing. Man, that is a law. I made that up. It's not a real law. But for me, it's been law. So when you get into that place in A Course in Miracles and the Way of Mastery, they call it a state of empty-headedness. And growing up a blonde, I never wanted that. I never wanted to be dizzy or empty-headed, or, that's how I saw it. But that's not what it means. It means you are completely present in the moment. You're not being informed by the past. The past doesn't exist. You are present in the moment. Empty-headed means when you are present, God, source, the universe can come right through you. And the things that come through me and out of my mouth when I'm in that state of empty-headedness, when I'm not trying to look good or look smart or not be judged, when I'm not trying to get something, when I am just of service. Number one, I don't get nervous, which is such a bonus when doing public speaking. Imagine, you just go live without a topic. I mean, I have a topic for this show, but I literally come up with it. I don't come up with it. I allow source to come up with it 5 or 10 minutes ahead of time. So enough time for me to type it in, the description. And then I just trust. I trust that the words will flow through me. And they do. And yeah, I mess up sometimes because I'm a human, but I also think that's hilarious. So that's all good. But when you can get in that state of empty-headedness and just trust, like the words are going to come to you, whatever is meant for someone else to hear is going to come through you. And my client who also watches this show is also a good friend of mine. He's like, I want royalties if you talk about me. So here you go. I won't say your name just in case, but very, very smart guy. So one of the other things we talked about, now I lost it. Dang it. I almost said your name again. You got me. One of the other things was intention. That's what it is. So when speaking to somebody or when leaving your house, when going into a meeting, when picking up your kids for school, anything you do, have a moment where you set an intention. Like, how do you want it to go? Right? Like, I want this to be easy and flow and fun. And then how do you want people to feel when they're on the receiving end of you? So whether you're having a conversation or you're coaching someone, you're in a meeting doing a presentation, how do you want people to feel around you? That's a really important one. And there was a voice coach that I did a podcast with one time, and she said, I want people to feel like they've known me their whole lives. Like they could tell me anything. I'm like, that's amazing. Yes, I want that. One of the things that is very important for me to feel, not to feel, but to give others, I want them to feel, is that they are unconditionally loved, that there's not a single thing they could tell me that I would say, oh, that's unlovable. Nope, that's where I draw the line. You're the only one I can't love. Like, no, I want them to know they could tell me absolutely anything, and I will not judge them. I will accept them and love them exactly as they are. And I really, really want them to feel that. The other thing is I want to be humble. I want to be of service. It's really important for me to make an impact. So whatever I do, like especially speaking and teaching, I want to make an impact. I'm not doing this to just waste time. That's one of my big things is like, I never, ever want to waste anybody's time, ever, ever. Like, I'm really weird about it, like oddly weird. So if I don't have anything to say, I just shut up. Now, I better have something to say here, right? Well, I don't, but God through me. So it all works out. Hopefully you never feel like I'm wasting your time. If you do, please turn it off, right? Hey, you have options. You can go watch Gossip Girl. It's back on Netflix. My daughter's watching that. That's why I brought it up. So back to intuition. One thing, there's something called getting the clutter out of the way, because the voice of the ego speaks first and it speaks loudest. And when your ego is talking, you can't hear anything else usually. So it is a practice. It's a practice. It's not a perfection. It's not called that. It's not called the perfect or perfection, a mastery. It is a practice. So one thing is that I have found helpful is to do a mind dump. So it can look like whatever. You can talk into your phone, like microphone, like record it. You can just say it out loud. You don't have to record it. I personally like writing. I like to write like blah, 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 vomit on the page until my head is pretty empty and there's space between thoughts. Because in that space, you can hear that quiet voice, that whisper. And that whisper is intuition. And for you, it might be a sign. It might be every time you see butterflies, you think of your mother who's passed. It could be, you might get a vision of something. You might get a thought pop into your head. A song might come on the radio. That it could be anything like that. You might have a feeling in your body, could be a physiological sensation. And remember in the beginning of the episode, I talked about expansion, like when your body feels open and expansive and your heart is open, that is a sign to follow it. Like it's a yes. If your body contracts, your stomach, for me, it's like my stomach. And then I also feel it in my heart if it's a no, but my body like kind of closes. It's like closed for business. Like I'm not open for hugs. Get away from me. Look like Dracula. No, but I can feel a contraction, a tightening, a getting smaller rather than expansive and taking up space. And I know you've had these feelings in your body. Like when you get nervous, you probably like tend to tense up, right? So sometimes, though, it's interesting. You get to really play with it and distinguish the difference. Sometimes when things are meant for you, they can still be a little scary. And people will say, like, oh, my intuition said no because I got contracted. Well, do you get excited when you're going on a first date with somebody you really like, or a second date? Probably a second date with someone you really had a good first date with? Like things like that doesn't mean it's not meant for you. It means it's exciting, it's new, it's thrilling. So you get to really start noticing the difference and paying attention to that, to the subtleties. And just ask yourself some questions like, okay, is this nervous excitement, or is it, you can be afraid for sure of something you haven't done before. It's very normal to be afraid. Your unconscious mind is designed to keep you alive and does that through fear. So if there's something you haven't done before, it's normal to feel fear. Now, if that thing that you haven't done before is going to lead, even possibly, is there a possibility for it to lead to something that you want? Like if you have a vision or a goal and this thing will get you closer to it, or it could get you clarity on your next step, absolutely you might feel fear. And that means you get to go for it anyway, because overcoming each one of those fears, taking those steps, even though you're afraid, will build that muscle. It builds courage. It also builds your intuition and your trust, because you can trust yourself. You're like, oh, I did that thing. It didn't kill me. Okay, I'm going to do the next thing. Let's see. I don't think it'll kill me. I'm pretty sure it won't. And then you do the next thing. And then the next thing. And you take these little tiny steps towards your vision. And eventually you're there. Like I had another client today, and last week she was talking about wanting to get rid of clutter. And so we said, hey, let's do 15 minutes. 15 minutes every single day. You put an alarm in your phone. It's non-negotiable. I mean, you don't have to do it at that time. But if you choose to accept this stretch, are you choosing it 15 minutes every day? That's almost 2 hours in a week. It's 1.75 hours. Math people. And she said once she got started, she didn't want to stop. She did like an hour many times. She did it every single day. She said, you won't believe how different it looks. And so many things I've been avoiding, I spent so much time avoiding them. It took zero time. One thing she said took 3 minutes to do, something that's been going on for 2 years. 3 minutes it took her. And now it's done. And she's like, she's feeling so good. And then business opportunities are coming to her. She's more confident, like her energy. I said, I really want you to go back and watch the recording from our first session to this one. This was our fourth. She looks so much lighter, so much happier. She's released all of the energy from all these old events. They're no longer affecting her. And she's taking committed action towards something that she wants. And that's one thing that I do in sessions is update people's minds to think thoughts that are about things that are possible to do and good to have done, and to attach pleasure to doing them. And she's like, it's actually been fun. I'm like, so it's working. Like my intention for you, our shared intention actually is working. Like it's actually fun for you to organize and clean and to enjoy the space that you're creating. So be careful with that one, because so many people use the term intuition to not do the thing they're afraid of, the thing that they know will lead them to the next step toward their vision, toward their goals. So that's what I want to warn you about. Like, don't use that. Like, just because you feel fear, it's normal. When you're expanding and growing, you're going to feel fear. You're a human. Good luck, right? We as humans are the only species that has the ability to feel fear when there's no real threat present. Fear is an emotional and physiological response to a perceived threat, not a real threat. I mean, if there's a lion, you better feel fear so you can run, right? But if it's a camera and there's nobody there that can really hurt you, what's the fear about? Rejection, judgment, abandonment. dying alone. I mean, I know that sounds weird, but it's all tied together and there's like this chain that goes. So really lean into it and ask for guidance. I don't know what you believe, but whatever it is, ask your higher power, source, your guides, your angels, God, Holy Spirit, whatever you call it, ask for guidance and you will get it in some way, in some way. Just ask for what you're ready for. Like, I'm ready to know this. I'm ready to do this next thing. Like, what do you want me to do? So my questions that I ask are, what would you have me say and to whom? So what would you have me say and to whom? Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? And it's never, ever, ever an authoritarian, you have to do this, you need to do this. Those words never happen. It's always like you get to, like, it would, and some of it's scary. Some of it I don't want to do. Sometimes I used to, especially like I would write my questions for God and then I would write the answers in a different color. And then sometimes I would just like, oh, that's lovely. And then I would close the notebook and not do it. Well, that makes it, for me at least, harder to hear because I felt like, yeah, I'm just going to get all this beautiful guidance and then I'm not going to do anything. Then I felt like I wasn't worthy of it. So I had my own stuff to deal with there. I don't know if that would happen to you. I mean, it's not like source or your guides are ever going to hold out on you. That's all our meaning, our construct. Like, I don't think there's anything unacceptable about you to God, your higher power. There's not. It's just impossible. Like, you are the same as you were created. You are pure love. You are source. You are God in the body. Like, that's just who you are. And whoever you believe in wants you to be happy. It is your birthright to be happy, to be healthy, to be abundant, to be love, because that's what we are. We're love in a body. That's it. And we're here to express it in our own unique ways. And I think about the beauty of that, how we all have such unique gifts and how we all come together and create magic. Like, I love that. Love it. So access your intuition, play with it, start noticing, clear your mind as much as possible. Meditation, beautiful. Like, to get some clear headedness. Sometimes writing, if you have a very active mind, I recommend walking with intention, with the intention of connecting to source, with your higher self. And have a question. Go to bed with a question. Like, okay, guides, show me this in my sleep. As I sleep, this is what I'm really wanting an answer for. Go to bed with that question on your heart and in your mind and just see what happens. Because when you actually ask for guidance and let go of the steering wheel, you don't have to do it all. You're not meant to do it all alone. It's impossible to get where you're meant to go alone. So ask your guides, trust, when you start getting those hits and you start following them, I would definitely recommend journaling what happened and what the result was when you actually followed it. And when you don't follow it, that's just as important. What was the result when you didn't follow it? How did it feel? What happened? What did you experience? And if you really document all those, you can look back and you're like, you could even have a journal, like 2 separate journals. Oh, when I didn't follow the intuitive guidance and when I did, and see what happens. Because it'll be a lot of information. It's not right or wrong. It's like you're on the journey and you're going to learn the lessons that you're here to learn. Just how do you want to learn them? Do you want to learn them kicking and screaming, or do you want to learn them playing and having fun with it? I like to choose fun. I don't always do it, to be honest. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not doing that. Nope. I dig in like a little child. And, I get the lesson in a different way. So whatever lands. I hope this was supportive for you. Have a beautiful holiday. If you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. If you celebrate Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah. And all the other things, happy everything. Thank you so much for watching. I am eternally grateful. I love you so much. And I just want to remind you that you are loved. You are loving, and you are lovable forever. Have a beautiful night or day wherever you are. Mwah!